This is Terms of Reference. I'm your host, Stephen Laddick. Jeroen van der Sommen is the director and co-founder of Akvo, an organization that builds open source internet and mobile software which is used to make international development cooperation and aid activity more effective and transparent. Jeroen helped to ignite the Akvo phenomenon after the Stockholm World Water Week in summer of 2006, and has steered Akvo's evolution to ensure it's relevant to and supported by a wide range of implementation NGOs, funding partners, and global institutions. He started his career as a geologist, working throughout the 1980s in countries such as Burkina Faso, Mozambique, Niger, Mali, Indonesia, and India, managing water supply and management projects on behalf of organizations such as the World Bank and the European Union. In 1998, Jeroen founded the Netherlands Water Partnership, where he built a dynamic network of over 200 member organizations. I spoke with Jeroen in The Hague. Hello, Jeroen. Thank you so much for being on the Terms of Reference podcast today.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And let's see, I am talking to you on May 26th. It's springtime here in Costa Rica. Where are you sitting and what's it like there?
I'm in The Hague in the Netherlands.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope that I've actually saw you. We saw some video beforehand. It's sunshiny there, so I'm sure you're looking forward to summer. Jeroen, you work for an organization called Akvo. You're actually one of its co-founders. Yeah. Tell us about what is it that Akvo does? What are the services that you provide, and how are you contributing to the development and humanitarian aid world?
Okay, so we at Akvo build open source internet and mobile software that is used to make international development cooperation and aid activity more effective and transparent. And we see a future where country governance and also the development cooperation is open and transparent and collaborative.
So we've had conversations with a few other people on this podcast about open data, obviously open source technology. Are you part of the open data movement? Are you gathering data, or you're a technology builder?
Yeah, we do both things. Akvo consists more or less out of two parts. One is the software developers, and I will explain you later how that's come. And the other one is the group, the partnership team. As we run our software as a service, and it's backed by a network of trainers and support.
Okay, and so for people who don't understand on the show, software as a service is something like Dropbox or like Google Docs, whatever, where the services are provided online and you just really need a browser to access it?
Yeah, correctly.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. Before you explain sort of how you do your business, I'm interested to hear how you arrived as the co-founder of Akvo. Did you start your career many moons ago, knowing that you were going to be an open source, on the cutting edge of open source, or where did you start? How did you get into this business? Take us back, a long time ago.
Yes, not at all. I didn't even know what it was. So originally, I'm a hydrogeologist. And straight from college, I did an internship in Burkina Faso in Africa. And basically, I stayed there with the consultant company Iwaco I worked for. And that brought me about 10 years in various countries in Africa and Asia. And what you do after I came back to the Netherlands and founded the Netherlands Water Partnership, where I worked for 10 years before coming to Akvo. And what you typically do, as many of us do, is you go back to a country where you've worked and you try to find out what's been left for all the work you did. So I went back to Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou, to the Ministry of Water. That was an important client, and we did a lot of projects. And then I found out that reports we had written were evaporated. Databases, were not really functional anymore. And basically, there were lots of people, young people, that doing the same things as I did before. And what struck me was that we accepted this. The donors accepted it. The NGOs accepted it. The consultants, they accepted it. And I thought, if we could solve that problem of, you can also call it hydrological memory, then we have really make a difference. And
take me back for just a second. So you were in Burkina Faso, I see Mozambique, Niger.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of one or two of the projects, like real examples of the projects that you were doing.
Oh, that was a part was just siting wells for drilling for water wells. It was at a national level in Burkina making a water plan, a water management plan for the country, in which having the right data was very important, making hydrological maps, these type of things.
Okay, and so when you came back, essentially all of the work that you'd done had either been lost or was being repeated by people again.
Yeah, and it was not accessible. Later, I was in Stockholm during the Stockholm Water Week, which is quite an annual event. And there I met someone, the other co-founder, Thomas Belkema, and he said, "Why are you not using open source software?" And I asked him, "What does that mean?" And then we started talking. And he was an internet entrepreneur who just came back from Silicon Valley, and he had a whole team of IT specialists that wanted to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And I brought, from my background, hydrogeologist and an international network of the Netherlands Water Partnership, where I used to work before. And that's how we founded Akvo, basically 7 years ago.
Tell me what the Netherlands Water Partnership was again. Like, what was the specific purpose of that network organization?
At the Netherlands Water Partnership, it was founded because we realized in the 90s that the private sector alone cannot solve water problems. The NGOs alone cannot solve it. The universities, etc., the government cannot do it alone. So we need to cooperate. And the Netherlands Water Partnership actually brings together private sector, knowledge institutes, NGOs, and government organizations. And we have one thing in common: we want to solve water solutions. And that became a model for many countries to follow. There is even a US water partnership and a Danish water forum and a German water partnership, because of that realization that it is really a multi-party effort.
Mm-hmm. And so when you and your co-founder came together, was the intention to focus on water issues, or did you see a greater need for development and aid work in general?
It was started out of the water sector. And later we moved into food and agriculture, economic development, health and others, agriculture. At the moment, it was really focused in primarily getting information stored. So we started Akvopedia, which is a Wikipedia for water matters. And there is a huge demand for that simple knowledge, experience that people have gathered over in their lives or in their programs. So we put that online. It's a free service. Later, we started with Akvo really simple reporting. So instead of writing a thick report that ends up somewhere in a library, you put it online and you can send updates from the field with your mobile phone to your project page. Mm-hmm. So there are now over 2,000 partners that using that type of reporting. So it gives also a narrative. You can have videos, you can have all kind of different way of means.
Fantastic. When you were still at the Netherlands Water Partnership, mm-hmm. What was the moment or what was the process that you went through to make a leap and be an entrepreneur and start Akvo? Did you had set some money aside and said, look, I'm really looking for an opportunity like this, or was this a spur of the moment decision, or was it really planned out?
No, it was not planned out. It started with first of the observation I had in Burkina Faso, and to really focus on that problem, the data loss, the memory problem. And then it all happened because I met Thomas. We talked the same language. And then it was a way of getting some small money to start up. And as the director of the Netherlands Water Partnership, I had some possibilities to get project funding in. And I asked my best colleague, Peter van der Linden, to run it. And that's what I did. And it's only later I became full-time assigned at an Akvo.
And so tell us about what a day looks like for you as one of the co-founders. What do you concentrate your time on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's we have plenty of balls in the air, as we say. That's as we're growing very fast. We have more than 65 people, so we have to adjust all the time to things that are happening worldwide. Or typically, I get up early to reach Amsterdam, where our office is. before the traffic jams start up, and then on the way I have a Skype with Peter, who is based in Indonesia, or Frodo, a colleague in Singapore, because of the time difference that fits quite well. And then we have what is interesting, as we have a lot of people all over the place. Skype for us is very important. I mean, Skype and email are the things where you are constantly communicated with the US or Burkina Faso or anywhere people are. And we have a Skype coffee corner, so it really, really works very well.
Mm-hmm. So is Akvo more of a virtual organization? You know, if you go on the website and I can see 20 or 30 staff that you have there, are they all located in one place, or they're truly around the world?
No, they are around the world. We have 15 people in Amsterdam, and then we have different hubs, because for the training and support, you need to be in the countries where you want to work with.
Walk us through a typical client relationship when a new organization or a new donor wants to start working with you. What does that process look like? How do you do an intake process, and what's the timing on that?
It depends. You have the NGOs who wants to use a mobile phone data collection tool and a platform to display and visualize the data. That can be very simple. I mean, he has heard of us or he knows us, and then we can do quite easy business, because it's not that complicated. You have your software, you have your support, depending where, etc. So that's a very short process. What is, though, more interesting is to work with governments. For example, the government in Mali at this very moment. Through that NGO that knows our software, we give some trainings in the country, and you try to get an entrance with a government officials at the Ministry of Water, for example, to give a demonstration. And next step is that they get interested, and you try to do a pilot, for example, in one of their ongoing programs. Because often they collect data by paper, having a GPS, having a separate tools, and we can replace that with a mobile phone, basically. So then, between that moment of first getting to know each other, it takes maybe 4 or 5 months before you can do a pilot. And if you do a pilot in a district or a couple of communities, and people see the impact of collecting data offline, sending it to your computer, and have immediately, nearly real time, the data that can share to everyone who has a mobile phone, then in all cases they are convinced that they want to have that more, and then you scale it up. And in in Mali, we started maybe 1 year ago, and now we are in the process of scaling it up for the whole country. And then is that we sent someone there to just to have a small office, because if you want to have a successful national system, the users of that system, being NGOs, being private sector, being communities, they need to be trained and supported too to have the impact.
So take me through the business model of this. Are you donor funded, or for instance, is the government of Mali your client and they pay you for this service? How does funding work at Akvo?
Funding is basically it's a software as a service model. So people pay for the use of the system, depending on number of users, depending on amount of data, etc. But to develop the software, for that, up till now, we land on grants.
Okay.
So to make RSR, it was an investment of different donors and foundations and the Dutch governments. And now RSR is self-supporting, the continuous development, etc. That is coming out of the service contributions.
And the Dutch government donors were willing to basically invest in the development of these because of your not-for-profit status?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was also the Hilton Foundation, the Scott Harder Foundation, and others.
I'm interested, how do you measure the success of Akvo at the end of the day? As your business, is it the number of user seats or the number of people using the system, or are there other measures that you use to say, yeah, what we're doing is making a difference?
Yeah, what for us is very important is the scale of the activities, because that is one of the things I've not mentioned, because one of the problems in the development sector is that software is mostly developed within the framework of one project. So the budget you have to develop something new is also limited. And we took that out of the project environment, build the software, and bring it in as a service. And because this software is that complicated and costly, one cannot run that on their own.
Sure.
So, yeah, that is basically... now I lost your question somewhere.
No, I was asking what your business model was and how...
Yeah.
And so really you're depending upon scale because you've built the, for lack of a better term, the Google Doc, right? No one organization would build that unless they were going to have, lots and lots and lots of clients. And you're saying that you've built a platform that's usable across many, many different kinds of projects. So that's why it can be tailored or it can be customed to each project, or you found commonality between those projects. So data collection.
Yeah, and what is the fundamental difference? I mean, the investment of the government of Nepal in a special feature of Flow or RSR will benefit the government of Liberia. They will get the free update.
Oh, sure. Okay, sure.
What we are building with money from the Belgian Development Corporation in Burundi, it adds on to the quality of the whole platform.
Sure, because every time you make an improvement, the entire platform benefits from the improvement. Yeah, I understand. That's great.
Yeah.
As you've been doing this for a while now, you've got your virtual organization across the world. You said you talked to Amsterdam and Singapore and the USA in your morning phone call, which is fantastic. Yeah. I love that. There has to be one or two stories that you can relate where either you were building out a new feature or you were implementing something for a new client and you came up with a surprising result. Everybody was like, whoa, we didn't expect that. Is there a story like that you like to tell?
Yeah, it is a project. What was surprisingly, what happened was, for example, in Vanuatu, we just before the hurricane struck a couple of months ago, we did a water point mapping and trained the people on the islands. And they had the basic data in place, and then the hurricane struck. Mm-hmm. And because the tools were there, the phones and the training and the skilled people, they had on the spot, immediately, they had the tools to do damage assessments. And there it was particularly important because a lot of the houses there have rooftop rain collectors for the water storage, etc., that went broke. And we could exactly say where the houses were dependent on rooftop rainwater harvesting techniques, etc., that were destructed. So that was another one, which is not just a product, but more a product which I never could have imagined 1 year ago, that you could use your mobile phone to measure the water quality. And that brought us into a new development direction of building sensors to phones and using the data collection platform for that. And one is particular, that we do that with a team in Bangalore. You use the phone as a spectrometer. So imagine in front of your flashlight, you put a small cylinder with water, you add an indicator drop to it, you take 5 pictures with your phone, and it is calibrated in such a way that it can tell you on the screen how much milligram per liter fluoride is there.
Holy cow, that's amazing.
That is really amazing. And we are developing it now for arsenic and other tests. And that is really something, and we hope to get sufficient funding in to have it for E. coli measurements, so the water quality.
My mind is reeling in just the types of possibilities. We've been lucky enough to have a couple other guests on this show that are in the sensor business. There's one called Lionsgate Technology. They do heart monitors and prenatal care, these kinds of things. So the fact that, again, it's proven that individuals are walking around essentially with these computing devices in their hands, it just seems like the possibilities continue to be endless.
It is only the start of this development. I mean, in general, that's about the data revolution. Only few people can grasp how that will transform the whole development sector, how a country is governed.
Well, take me there for a second. One of the questions I usually ask is, what do you see happening in the next 5 or even 10 years as Akvo continues to develop, or this open source and data revolution continues to development, what do you see happening in the next 5 years that you're paying attention to and you're guiding your team to be aware of?
Oh, the sensor business is one thing. I mean, using your phone to detect pollution, all kind of things. So that's a big thing, from soil moisture till CO2, etc. Another thing is how these data is going to be used by the people. Now, for the first time, again, the example in Burkina Faso, a local district, or Ghana, I should say, a local district officer with his mobile phone has access to the whole country database. Mm-hmm. He can add data, he can use data, which he could never done before. And now so the decentralization of governments is a huge result of that mobile phone, internet developments. I think you will get professional data collectors. Up till now, it's often the governments who collect data, but you will have fuzzy data, fuzzy monitoring, people sending in all kind of reactions or observations, etc. Partly you can structure it, partly it's just a way of collecting and searching it. The biggest thing for us where we work now is to make dashboards where you can analyze that data in a very simple way. And not only data that are collected by us, but data from other data sources.
So really it's transforming that into usable information, because yes, data can be overwhelming even in one person's daily life, right?
Exactly. And it's in the use.
As you were talking about the fact that, that one municipal worker has access to the entire data set on their own, where do you stand on data safety and data security and the potential malicious use of some of this data? Is this something that Akvo gives thought to?
Yes, that's an issue. Although we promote open data, but naturally not all data can be open. But data on water points, we try to encourage governments sharing these data because But if we collect household data, they are not being shared. They are protected. And they are not openly published. Maybe as aggregated data it could be, but that's not publicly available.
And is that something that you take responsibility for as the owner and the manager of the software as a service, for putting up those security controls, et cetera?
Yes, we do. And that's an important part of the work we do to make it as safe as possible.
Mm-hmm. I'm still sort of fascinated by the fact that you had mapped all of the water points in Vanuatu. I'm lucky enough to have been there in recent memory. And just before the hurricane, so the fact that they were able to show up, literally the day after the hurricane and know where all of those were on a map, that's just amazingly powerful. You created resilience, which is something that has been just beyond the grasp of aid organizations for such a long time now. What about the opposite? Has there been a time when you've created an implementation, sort of going down this security and malicious intent thought? Has there been a time when you've worked with a client, or you've had a rogue employee or something where something didn't work out the way you wanted it to, or the data was used in a bad way, or the data, the systems that you created didn't live up to their promise? And what did you do to recover from that?
Fortunately, there are not many of that cases, but we had one time a serious system breakdown. We had one time a problem with data transfer from an old instance to a newer one, these type of things. Luckily, we have never been confronted with misuse of data or these type of things.
That's great. How do you contribute to the larger open source platform and the open source standards? What would, for lack of a better term, your other competitors out there who do open source development in this space? What's the typical way that you interact and you contribute with them?
Yeah, the first part of your question was about the open data. We are building IATI, International Aid Transparency Initiative tool, so to say. That is the standard that we are using, and that is the current standard. We build that, for example, for the Dutch government. That is going to move to IATI compatible online reporting systems to get rid of the paperwork. And in that way, we interact with the IATI secretariat, etc. About other open source developers, our principle is that if we find components of our tools or dashboards or graphics or whatever, we always research if there are open source tools out there. And if they are out there and fit our needs, we integrated them in our own software. A good example is CartoDB, which is a graphics mapping program. So we fully integrated that into Akvo Flow because that work has already been done. So we make use of it. About competitors, yes, in this space there are competitors. But I think there are only few who are truly open source and not for profit. And have a continuously feature development backed up with support and training locally.
What do you were sort of talking a while ago about what you think the future is over the next 5 or 10 years. Is there a one or two challenges that you think need to be overcome, such as, could it be as simple as, access to technology, access to mobile technology, in the developing world? Could it be training people, developing the understanding of what open source and software as a service is? Or what are the greatest hurdles that you think you need to overcome over the next 3 or 4 years?
I think I see the hurdles more in the way how the development cooperation has been financed. I think a lot of responsibility is there with the donors and the large organizations, the UN organizations, etc., the World Bank, to make the next step in scaling up activities. Maybe it sounds a bit weird to you, but one of the problems is that donors often think in their own program financing, period of time kind of things, which does not permit to really come up with solution that can scale. And then, if you come now in Benin or in Ghana, they have not one national database. They have 5 or 6, one from the Dutch, one from the GIZ, one from the USAID. And basically these things are not functioning. I'm exaggerating, but that is the way how donors behave. They have the project, they give the money, and then after 5 years they go. Mm-hmm. And if we can overcome that, and I think a key to do that is the transparency. Because in the beginning of our conversation, I depicted that nobody seems to care that knowledge is evaporating, that it's not accessible anymore. That is going to change with the tools we have now. To give you an example, we have, a couple of years ago, we mapped all water points in Liberia. This year, we're going to go back to all those water points and see which are functioning and what not, and who built them. And you will have better insight when district officers can track whether those pumps from WaterAid or UNICEF or SNV or any other, whether they perform well or not. So then for the first time, people are confronted with the impact. And sustainability is key in this, that we are able to real-time monitor the impact and the sustainability of solutions we provide. And that could be very surprising if we are confronted with it.
I'm privileged to know that you helped an organization called Water for People build out a real-time water monitoring system. Was this a project that they came to you with, or is this part of the Liberia project you're talking about now, or?
No, I have not explained that part, but Akvo Flow, the mobile data collection tool we have, originally was built by Water for People. Mm-hmm. And Ned Breslin, at that time the CEO of Water for People, he drove this development, but he realized, and he had some consultants that built the tool for him according to his specification, but he realized to service this tool and to build it to the next stage that it can scale, it's not something Water for People had the capacity in-house. So he was looking for an organization specialized in open source software, etc., and he came across Akvo. So that is, I think, 3 years ago. And then the first mapping activities was in Liberia, and then we brought Flow further till the tool it is now, and it's constantly being developed.
Another great example of something where you've found a piece of technology and you've added it to your suite of services, and everybody benefits from it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jeroen, I always have one final question that I ask our guests on this show. You've been fortunate enough to have started many moons ago and sort of worked from a hydrologist to working for a partnership organization, and now you're running an open source software that essentially services the aid and development community. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to a young person coming out of a master's degree or someone who's interested in transitioning from the private sector into development and aid work? What advice would you give to them about how to create a sustainable and successful career like yours?
What has shaped me was starting as a very young professional in Africa, outside your own comfort zone, so to say, and getting a sense of the real life. That has shaped me as a professionalist, and now in many ways I feel coming back where I've started. So take on your traveling shoes and try to find an interesting start of your career abroad. In the Netherlands, we have the Young Expert Professional Program that is set up for that, to give young people a chance to work in projects. We have a couple of them with Akvo, young talented people who work in Tanzania and in Indonesia. So that's one thing. Yeah, I mean, go for the unexpected. Innovation is a matter of speed, but also being open for new unexpected things. That I would advise them.
Jeroen, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a fascinating conversation.
It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Terms of Reference podcast from aidpreneur.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes.